So if we start thinking about this from a policing perspective, right? So what does this matter, right? So there's a few things that we are probably going to know about police, right? So in theory, police could go anywhere, right? They have cars, they have stations, they have and so on, right? But it's not really an efficient use of resources, right? Because I have limited officers, I have limited cars, right? So what ends up happening is that I'm going to target areas with most need. Why? Because that's more efficient, right? Or put need in quotes. So if I, and this is a simple kind of case, right? Because I know a few things, right? That I am ultimately judged my ability to reduce crime, right? And I have scarce resources in order to do it. So if I'm a police officer, then if I'm going to target areas of most need, and I'm judged by crime, right? I have to do things that look like I'm responding and reducing crime. That's ultimately what I'm interested in, right? I want crime to go down. That's what I'm judged by. That's how people know if I'm effective or not. Now, based off what I told you, right, what ends up happening is that you have, placement in cities with high disorder. And this is where police are more likely to show up, right? Because again, this is an efficient way to use resources, right? It also means that because of like this is the way the police departments are organized to work on judged by crime, I have to go to areas with high crime. That's where I'm quote unquote more useful. This is the area with most need. What this means then is that police are more prevalent in black and brown communities, right? Because if you look all over our country, the areas with the most, from a city standpoint, with like big industry, more poverty, more all kinds of social problems, also tend to be populated with black and brown people. And that's where police are more likely to show up, right, in terms of calls for service and so on, right? So if we think about, what this means, right, this creates a standpoint where, people when like in these areas and these communities, right, have experiences where the police show up when bad things happen, right? What ends up happening is that they're showing up for bad things, right? If I see a police officer, for some people they feel safe, right? But for others, this might translate into a feeling of unsafe. So it creates this interesting problems that the police often like market themselves as being these really I'm here to protect and serve kind of people. I'm here to protect the community, and that might be fine if you never see the police because maybe temporarily you feel unsafe. That you see them and you feel better. But if you're always see police and it's always associated with danger, right? It's probably not feeling that. If anything, you might feel unsafe, right? The other aspect too is that when you have a higher concentration amount of police, you also are going to have more contact with police. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because police are suspicious people. They, more than perhaps like any other profession, right? They believe that people are suspicious or up to no good. They're cynical. And a lot of this stuff also, the suspicion and cynicism is increased um, during areas of high disorder. And when this happens, right, when you're in this heightened state of where there's more crime, you're responding to a lot of violent crime, a lot of calls related to it, right? You start associating people, certain people, in this case, communities of color, with danger as a police officer. So you have this case, right, where you have police over time develop a fear of certain people, and where certain people, black and brown people, right, are fearful of police, right? Now, from an officer standpoint, right, they have a lot more tools available to them in this situation, right? Because, like if they feel unsafe, right, because they can, we know they can use force, so we know we have use of force is available. We also know that they can stop people, like in a pedestrian stop or like in a traffic stop, and they can also search and seize. They can use these techniques to maybe like mitigate a fear or they say it's for their own safety or something like that. But what ends up happening, right, is that you end up, because there's this fear-based thing going on, right, you end up targeting people more, and it creates this disparity in outcomes and referrals to the criminal justice system, because the police are the gateway to the criminal justice system, right? You get arrested, that's how you start going to jail, right? So you have this disparity in outcomes because of this suspicion, fear, and in the context, right? And if you're dealing with someone who is hostile to police, right? And depending on your demeanor changes, right? That also changes how police react, right? Because you have police responding to who they're dealing with, and the person, the civilian in the situation, is responding to police, right? It creates this, really messy like interaction between them where each are responding to one another. So we'll take a pause and stop here.